Want to use a PGR in your cereals but have no time for a separate pass? Manipulator PGR can be applied as early as one tiller. Just add it to your herbicide to reduce lodging, increase harvest efficiency, and maximize yields. Talk to your retailer for more info and to confirm acceptable tank mixes.
Hi, Ralph. Thanks for joining us on Real Agriculture. It's so good to have you.
Hey, thanks, Amber, for having me. Happy to be here.
So you run and own a 22,000 hectare ranch, McIntyre Ranch, down south of Lethbridge. Is that correct?
Correct. My siblings and I'm the oldest of four children to our parents. So my younger sister and two younger brothers and I jointly own the McIntyre Ranch now since my mother's passing a couple of years ago. You said hectares, and hectares is a new language for me. I talk in sections, 87 sections,
Mm-hmm.
or 55,680 acres. But now we've spoken most languages
Okay,
in
all
in
the
our
languages.
in our country. Yes.
Right. And that's a really large chunk of land. So, Ralph, can you tell us a little bit about the history of McIntyre Ranch?
Yeah, the property was established by William McIntyre in 1894, and apparently he had come up from Texas over a 4-year period to see the various seasons before establishing the property that it is today. How the Thrall family got involved was my grandfather became close friends with Billy McIntyre, was the best man at his wedding, was an employee of his, kind of as secretary treasurer, which I think maybe today's terminology might be controller. And so they had a 30-year relationship. And when Billy passed away in 1947, the McIntyre family no longer wanted to own the property. So my grandfather purchased it in 1948. So it's
Okay.
been in the McIntyre's stewardship for 53 years, and now in our family for 75, 6 years, whatever the math is there.
You guys just signed an agreement with the Nature Conservancy of Canada and Ducks Unlimited to preserve that land in pasture land. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes. It's been a long time in the making. Conversations go back initially 30 plus years ago, when the notion was broached. No, my father at the time was not prepared. It was not a short-lived, relatively short-lived conversation. I became involved in the operation back in sort of originally 1987, then took over managing in 1990. And by this time, my father decided that any future conversation with Nature Conservancy Canada would be directed in my direction. So I've been having the long-standing sort of the relationship with Nature Conservancy, and then in most recent years, the back in right at the front end of COVID, which is a nice reference point, I guess, is when we really, the four of us, my siblings and I, got more really focused on the conversation, and we didn't let off the pedal. We've completed the easement, and the fundraising campaigns now have been completed, and now we're moving forward with the data collection. Part of the process is data collection on the property, grass species, plants and grasses, insects, amphibians, mammals, reptiles. And this is to now, again, I will say something that we've been working towards all along, and that is optimizing the habitat for the grass and wildlife.
So, what made you choose to go with conservation easements?
I view the McIntyres as pioneer conservationists. What they experienced coming up from Texas through the Midwest was a lot of overgrazing. And by this time, the bison had been, by and large, kind of eliminated and replaced with cattle and sheep and such. But they recognized the overgrazing, and I think what they recognized was sustainability is what I think they came to realize, is that you can't take all of the grass. You need to leave some. That is a very important thing for sustainability.
Right.
And that legacy that they began has continued through our family. that's what it comes down to. It's without the grass, it's not taking care of anything at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So modest grazing, relatively speaking, compared to, I'll say, average. I think typical is, again, unfortunately has hurt and taken away and destroyed a lot of the native species of our grasslands and wildlife habitat. And so this is just how my siblings and I were raised, I guess, to appreciate this is what it was, and we're just carrying on. So effectively, putting an easement on it, on the property, was effectively accomplishing this to make sure it doesn't change. And through over the course of the last few years, I've learned a lot through our relationship with Nature Conservancy and Ducks Unlimited. And one of those is that pretty much 80% of our country, of our grasslands, has been converted, largely to farmland, and then other cities and other industry. So for us to have an easement on it just makes sure it will not be converted. It will still provide something for the planet that used to be here in considerable abundance, that does play very important roles in carbon sequestration, along with the habitat for other species that have been displaced by other cultivation and other things.
That's great. And what does the agreement that you have with Ducks Unlimited and the Nature Conservancy of Canada actually entail?
There's relatively few, I'll say, restrictions, if you will. The one is no conversion to farmland per se, or we can't put windmills on it. We can't put solar farms on it.
Mm-hmm.
That's in essence the biggest one. The little ones are we can't game farm.
Okay.
That's one of them. There's 5 or 6 restrictions. Subdivision is another one, and that's again another one to another pressure is to subdivide, big or small properties into spaces for acreages for humans to live, for example, and take away that habitat for other species. Other restrictions, limitations is again that development overall. Talk about cultivation, can't cultivate. Other limit the development of other buildings and structures and roads and trails. Those are the primary limitations. The easement really doesn't change for us. I guess why it partly made sense for us is we wanted it to stay this more raw, natural thing. We don't want development. And so really grateful to have entities like Nature Conservancy and Ducks Unlimited that permit this thing, enable us and other landowners to preserve things in the way that they used to be.
Right. So your current grazing methods, those are fine within the easement?
Yes, the limitations, the restrictions really don't change how we go about doing our business. We still own the property. The easement stays on title if and when our family, they'll pass down through generations if that continues, or if this generation or future generations sold the property, these restrictions stay with the property. So any future landowners of the McIntyre Ranch have to abide by these restrictions.
And what does that easement mean for a ranch of that size? Because I know a lot of people that have looked into it are on smaller land bases. So being that size, that's a big chunk of land that is going to be kept in grasslands for a long time. So what do you see that as meaning for that amount of land?
When it comes to preserving really any amount of land, big or small, and yes, the McIntyre Ranch is unusually large. Average is not is considerably smaller, and they're all important in the grand scheme of things. They do add up. Nickels and dimes and pennies add up to bigger things. I think the 4 of us are really proud of ourselves for having really protected the McIntyre Ranch. For right or for wrong, what happens in 150 years or 1500 years or 10,000 years, this is for us. This is the right thing to do here and now today. It's the right decision for us.
Right. And so that agreement is in perpetuity. It's never ending.
Correct. It's
That's
yes,
great.
you said for a very long time. Yes, in perpetuity is a very long time.
So yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Ralph. And I feel like I could talk to you all day long, and it's been fantastic information. So thank you for sharing.
Hey, you're very welcome. Pleasure to share, and lots to continue to learn from others, and look forward to some rainy, snowy days in the next few weeks.